This week, EU's Digital Omnibus proposals, the Pepkor Lifestyle data breach, the Cloudflare outage, the fascinating AI fraud detection story, and Black Friday security tips.
Welcome to Priviso Live, and
I'm Lynn.
I'm Stephen.
And joining us for the first time is Kay, standing in for John, who is unavailable. Welcome, Kay.
Thank you, Lynn. It's a pleasure to be here.
We've got a packed show today covering everything from major regulatory changes in Europe to local data breaches and Black Friday shopping security.
That's right. We'll be discussing the European Union's controversial Digital Omnibus package that's making waves in privacy circles, a recent data breach affecting South African retailers, the Cloudflare outage that impacted millions, a fascinating story about AI detecting potential fraud in the tech industry, and of course, keeping you safe during Black Friday shopping.
Let's start with the big news from Europe. On November 19th, the European Commission unveiled what they're calling the Digital Omnibus package. This is a sweeping set of proposed changes to some of the world's most influential digital regulations, including the GDPR, the AI Act, and e-privacy rules.
And Stephen, this is significant because these European regulations have always set the global standard for privacy protection. South African companies doing business with Europe have to comply with GDPR, and our own Popia was actually inspired by GDPR principles.
So what exactly are they proposing to change?
The Commission is framing this as a simplification initiative to reduce administrative burdens on businesses. The package would consolidate various data regulations, create a single reporting portal for data breaches, and extend the data breach notification deadline from 72 hours to 96 hours. They're also proposing changes that could allow websites to track visitors with cookies by default, forcing consumers to opt out rather than opt in as they do today.
That's a helpful shift. Right now, under GDPR, you need explicit consent before tracking someone. This would flip that model entirely.
And there's a big AI component too, right?
Yes. The proposal would explicitly permit AI training on personal data when justified by companies' legitimate interests, rather than requiring user consent. For the AI Act, they're proposing to expand companies' access to regulatory sandboxes and adjust timelines for high-risk AI systems to a maximum of 16 months.
Now, the Commission says these changes are expected to save up to €5 billion in administrative costs for businesses by 2029. But privacy advocates are sounding alarm bells. European Digital Rights has called this a major rollback of EU digital protections and warned it risks dismantling the foundation of human rights and tech policy in the EU.
So, we're looking at a potential weakening of privacy protections in the name of competitiveness and innovation. This will be worth watching, especially for South African businesses that interact with European markets. Now let's talk about something closer to home. In a week where Macy's, Mazda, Michelin, Broadcom and Canon were all reported to have been hit with ransomware, we've got another data breach affecting South African consumers. Stephen, what happened?
Just before Black Friday, bad time for anyone to be compromised. Pepkor Lifestyle, the company which owns brands like Incredible Connection, HiFi Corp, Russell's, Bradlow's, Rochester and Sleepmasters, has notified customers about a security breach involving a third-party service provider. That service provider is SMS marketing firm Mobiz, which was breached on October 13th.
And what makes this interesting is that the threat actor didn't just view data, they also deleted data related to a marketing and statement campaign. While deleting data isn't uncommon, it's usually preceded by some sort of extortion. In this case, the motivation isn't entirely clear.
What kind of data was exposed?
The only data that was seemingly compromised was cell phone numbers. Now, that might not sound like much compared to credit card numbers or ID numbers, but it's still concerning. While it may just be cell phone numbers that were compromised, cybercriminals tend to collate data from a wide number of sources to build out a better picture of a potential target. This allows them to craft very specific personal phishing emails in hopes of hooking someone with their guard down.
So, if you've agreed to receive marketing from Incredible Connection, HiFi Corp or any of these Pepkor Lifestyle brands, you need to be extra vigilant about phishing attempts via SMS or calls.
Exactly. And this isn't Pepkor's first rodeo, unfortunately. Back in May 2023, JD Group, which also operates under the Pepkor umbrella, suffered a breach affecting over 520,000 customers where names, email addresses, physical addresses, phone numbers, and South African ID numbers were exposed.
The recurring nature of these breaches really highlights the importance of supply chain security. It's not enough to secure your own systems. You need to ensure that every third-party vendor you work with has robust security practices as well.
All right, let's move on to a major outage that affected a huge portion of the internet just a few days ago. Kay, tell us about Cloudflare.
On November 18th, Cloudflare's network began experiencing significant failures to deliver core network traffic. This showed up to internet users trying to access their customers' sites as an error page indicating a failure within Cloudflare's network. And this lasted for several hours, with core traffic only returning to normal by 14:30.
For those who don't know, Cloudflare is absolutely massive. They provide CDN services, DDoS protection, security services, and more for millions of websites. When Cloudflare goes down, a significant chunk of the internet goes down with it.
So what caused it? Was it a cyber attack?
No. The issue was not caused directly or indirectly by a cyber attack or any malicious activity. Instead, it was triggered by a change to one of their database system's permissions, which caused the database to output multiple entries into a feature file used by their bot management system. That feature file, in turn, doubled in size.
The software running on these machines to route traffic across their network had a limit on the size of the feature file that was below its doubled size. That caused the software to fail. It's a classic case of an unexpected edge case causing a cascading failure.
What made this particularly difficult to diagnose?
The file was being generated every 5 minutes by a query running on a ClickHouse database cluster. Bad data was only generated if the query ran on a part of the cluster which had been updated. So every 5 minutes there was a chance of either a good or a bad set of configuration files being generated and distributed. The system would recover, then fail again. This fluctuation initially led them to believe they were under attack.
And to make matters worse, their status page also went down at the same time, though that was apparently a coincidence. That really made them think they were being targeted.
What services were affected?
Core CDN and security services returned HTTP 5x errors. Turnstile failed to load. Workers KV returned elevated errors. The dashboard was mostly operational, but users couldn't log in due to Turnstile being unavailable. And Cloudflare Access had widespread authentication failures.
What's interesting here from a lessons learned perspective is that this was essentially a configuration management failure. The system had built-in limits, which is good practice, but those limits weren't tested against potential edge cases like file size doubling.
And Cloudflare called this their worst outage since 2019. They've committed to hardening their systems, enabling more global kill switches for features, and reviewing failure modes across all core proxy modules.
For South African businesses relying on Cloudflare, this is a good reminder that no service provider is infallible. You need redundancy plans and the ability to fail over to alternative providers if necessary.
Now, we're going to dive into a fascinating and controversial story that's been making waves this week. It involves artificial intelligence, trading algorithms, and potentially one of the largest accounting irregularities in tech history. Stephen set the scene for us.
At precisely 4 p.m. Eastern Time on November 19th, NVIDIA Corporation released third-quarter earnings that exceeded Wall Street expectations. Revenue reached $57.01 billion against a consensus estimate of $54.9 billion. The stock surged 5% in after-hours trading, adding approximately $130 billion to the company's market capitalization.
Sounds like great news, right? But here's where it gets interesting. 18 hours later, the Nasdaq Composite closed down 1.21%. NVIDIA's gains evaporated. What happened in those 18 hours?
Algorithmic trading systems detected accounting irregularities faster than human analysts could read the earnings footnotes. We're talking about AI discovering potential issues in financial statements before traditional analysts even finished their initial reviews.
That's remarkable. What exactly did these algorithms detect?
There are several concerning patterns. First, while reporting $19.3 billion in profit, NVIDIA generated only $14.5 billion in actual cash, leaving a gap of $4.8 billion. For comparison, healthy semiconductor manufacturers like TSMC and AMD typically convert over 95% of their profits into cash.
Then there's the inventory issue. NVIDIA has stockpiled $19.8 billion in unsold chips, a figure that rose 32% in 3 months. Executives continue to claim that demand is insane and supply is constrained. However, it is mathematically impossible for supply to be constrained while unsold inventory piles up in warehouses.
So either demand isn't as strong as they're saying, or customers can't pay for what they've ordered?
Exactly. And this leads us to what some are calling circular financing in the AI industry. NVIDIA invested $2 billion into xAI, which then borrowed $12.5 billion to purchase NVIDIA chips. Microsoft provided OpenAI with $13 billion, after which OpenAI committed $50 billion to buy Microsoft Cloud Services. Microsoft then ordered $100 billion in NVIDIA chips to build that cloud capacity.
The cycle continued when Oracle gave OpenAI $300 billion in cloud credits, leading OpenAI to order NVIDIA chips for Oracle data centers. These transactions allowed the same dollars to circle through different entities while being recorded as net new revenue at each stop. NVIDIA books the sales, but the bills age, and the cash does not arrive.
So it's like a financial merry-go-round. Company A invests in Company B, which uses that money to buy from Company A?
Precisely. This has created a situation in which the value of many tech giants now depends heavily on contracts with OpenAI, contracts whose financing remains uncertain. This is particularly evident in Oracle's case, as much of its future revenue depends on OpenAI. And Oracle is investing tens of billions of dollars in NVIDIA chips, but questions arose about Oracle's massive debt, which now reflects a 6x debt-to-equity ratio.
Now, it's important to note that this is still unfolding. The author of the analysis we're discussing characterizes this as potentially a $610 billion issue, but that's based on projections and assumptions about future quarters.
What are the warning signs that smart investors are watching?
Well, smart money began exiting before the crash. Peter Thiel sold $100 million in NVIDIA stock on November 9th, followed by a $5.8 billion dump by SoftBank on November 11th. Michael Berry has purchased put options betting the stock will fall.
The timeline matters here. Detailed receivables aging schedules in the Q4 fiscal 2026 10K filing, expected February 2026, will reveal what percentage of the $33.4 billion remains unpaid beyond 60 days. Inventory turnover rates in the same filing will clarify whether the increase represents deliberate stockpiling or demand deterioration.
So we won't really know the full picture until next year when more detailed disclosures come out.
Correct. But what's truly remarkable about this story is the speed at which algorithms identified potential issues. Traditional financial analysis takes days or weeks. These systems flagged anomalies in hours.
And this has broader implications. The 5 major spenders on AI, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, Meta, and Oracle, have raised a record $108 billion in debt combined in 2025, more than 3 times the average over the previous 9 years.
So there's a lot of debt funding this AI boom.
Yes, the use of leverage and the circular nature of many of the financing deals introduce a level of risk that wasn't there before. When companies were funding their AI investments from cash reserves, that was one thing. When they're taking on massive debt to do it, and that debt is tied to revenue projections from companies that are themselves taking on debt, you've got a much more fragile situation.
The broader AI industry faces a $3.1 trillion question. Can artificial intelligence applications generate sufficient economic value to justify current infrastructure investment? The answer will determine whether the current correction represents temporary volatility or the beginning of a fundamental revaluation.
For our South African listeners, why should they care about this?
Several reasons. First, if there's a significant correction in the tech sector globally, it affects markets everywhere, including the JSE. Second, many South African investors have exposure to these companies through global funds. Third, this is a broader lesson about how quickly AI is changing financial markets themselves. The tools that detect fraud are now faster than humans. And finally, it's a reminder to be skeptical of hype cycles, whether that's AI, crypto, or any other technology. Fundamental economics still matter. Companies need to generate actual cash, not just reported revenue. Actually, speaking of smart money moves, there's one more thing worth mentioning here. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway just revealed they've taken a $4.9 billion stake in Alphabet. That's Google's parent company.
Oh, that's rather significant, isn't it? Buffett's been notoriously hesitant about tech stocks for decades.
Yeah, and this is happening at the same time he's been selling down his Apple position and building up a massive $381 billion cash pile. So for him to drop nearly $5 billion on Google right now, that's a proper statement, hey?
Right. And what makes this fascinating is the timing. While we're seeing all this AI bubble anxiety, concerns about circular financing, and questions about whether these massive infrastructure investments will pay off, Buffett is betting on the one company that might actually survive an AI crash. Google has real revenue from advertising, a dominant search position, and the infrastructure to weather whatever comes next.
So it's rather like saying, if the AI party ends badly, I'm backing the one with a real business model underneath all the hype.
And for us here in South Africa watching this unfold, it's a reminder that even in the AI era, fundamentals still matter. Google makes money. Lots of it, from actual customers paying for actual services. That's the kind of stuff Buffett understands.
And it might signal a shift from what some are calling AI's colonial era, where a few companies own everything and extract value, towards something more sustainable. Or at least that's the bet Buffett seems to be making.
Could all of this lead to a market collapse, maybe even a depression?
Well, a depressed market, certainly. And you know what they say. When America sneezes,
Everybody catches a cold. All right, let's shift gears to something immediately practical for our listeners. Black Friday is coming up, and with it, a massive surge in online shopping and, unfortunately, cybercrime. Kay, what are the biggest threats people face?
Yeah, the number one threat is phishing, particularly via email and SMS. Cybercriminals send millions of fake messages that appear to come from legitimate retailers. These messages promise exclusive deals, claim there's a problem with your order, or say you've won a prize. And because people are expecting promotional emails and shipping notifications during Black Friday, these scams blend right in. Worth noting against the Pepkor breach we discussed earlier,
the sophistication has really increased. We're not talking about obvious scams with poor grammar anymore. These are polished, professional-looking messages that are almost indistinguishable from the real thing.
What happens if someone clicks on one of these phishing links?
You're typically taken to a fake website that looks exactly like the real retailer's site. You enter your login credentials, credit card information, address, phone number. The criminals capture all of it. Sometimes they'll even redirect you to the real site afterwards, so you don't even realize you've been compromised.
Then there are the fake shopping websites. Criminals create entire fake e-commerce sites with incredible deals on popular items. People place orders, submit payment, and either receive nothing or get counterfeit products.
How can people identify these fake sites?
Check the URL very carefully. Scammers use slightly misspelt domain names or add extra characters. Instead of takealot.com, it might be take-alot.com or takealots.com. If the deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. A brand new iPhone for 70% off? Not realistic.
Also look at payment methods. Legitimate retailers offer multiple secure payment options. If a site only accepts wire transfers, cryptocurrency, or gift cards, that's a massive red flag.
What about shopping in physical stores? Are there risks there too?
Absolutely. Criminals install skimming devices on card readers at checkout counters. Black Friday is ideal for this because stores are packed, lines are long, and employees are overwhelmed. It's easier to install skimmers without being noticed.
The best protection is to use contactless payment methods like Apple Pay, Google Pay, or tap-to-pay credit cards. These generate unique transaction codes for each payment, making them much more secure.
Let's talk about practical protection strategies. What should people do?
First, use strong, unique passwords for every shopping account. Use a password manager to generate and store them. Enable two-factor authentication on every shopping account that offers it, especially places like Takealot, PayPal, and your banking apps.
Always verify emails and SMS messages. Don't click links in messages. Instead, go directly to the retailer's website by typing the URL into your browser or using the official app. If there really is a deal or an issue with your account, you'll see it when you log in directly.
What about shopping on public Wi-Fi? I know a lot of people browse deals while they're out.
Avoid it if possible. Use your mobile data connection instead. It's much more secure. If you absolutely must use public Wi-Fi, Use a VPN to encrypt your traffic. And never enter credit card numbers or passwords while on public Wi-Fi unless you're using a VPN.
Use credit cards instead of debit cards for shopping. Credit cards have better fraud protection. If your card is compromised, criminals have access to your credit line, not your actual bank account.
What if someone realizes they've been scammed?
Act immediately. Contact your bank or credit card company right away and report the fraud. They'll cancel the card and issue a new one. If you entered login credentials on a fake site, change your passwords immediately on the real sites.
File a report with the South African Police Service and consider reporting to the Banking Association of South Africa. Also report the scam to the company that was impersonated.
Any final advice as we head into Black Friday?
Take your time. Don't let the pressure of limited time deals override your better judgment. A good deal isn't worth compromising your financial security.
And trust your instincts. If something feels off about a website, an email, or an offer, walk away. There will always be other deals.
That's all we have time for today. We've covered the EU's Digital Omnibus proposals, the Pepkor Lifestyle data breach, the Cloudflare outage, the fascinating AI fraud detection story, and Black Friday security tips.
Stay vigilant out there, especially with Black Friday approaching. The threats are real, but with awareness and good security practices, you can protect yourself.
And remember, privacy and security aren't just about technology. They're about being informed, staying alert, and making smart decisions.
This has been Priviso Live. Thank you for listening. We hope you found today's episode valuable. If you did, please share it with your colleagues, your friends, your family. The more people who understand these threats, the safer we all are.
If you want to hear more of the same, subscribe to Priviso Live on Apple, Samsung, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or YouTube.
And if you need security, risk, or ICT legislation advice, contact Priviso Consulting directly at admin@priviso.co.za.
And if you have topics you'd like us to cover or questions about anything we discussed today, reach out to us. We love hearing from our listeners.
This has been Priviso Live. I'm Lynn.
I'm Steven.
And I'm Kay. Thanks for listening.
Stay safe, everyone.